Welcome to This Week in Tiger Athletics. I'm your host, Haley White, and joining me today is FHSU second-year head baseball coach Jerod Goodale. Coach guided the Tigers to a 4-game sweep of MSU Denver last weekend to open up the season. It was FHSU's first 4-game sweep of a series in nearly 5 years. And the 4 wins last weekend surpassed the team's 3 total wins of last season. First off, congrats on that sweep. It has to be a great start and feel great to start off the season like that.
Thank you. Yeah, it definitely feels good. It was one of those things. I think the momentum kind of kept building throughout the weekend, and I think obviously getting that first game was very important, and I think it took a lot of pressure off our guys, and I think they kind of just built that throughout that over the weekend.
With such a new and young team, how good was it to get off to a start like that?
It was really good. To me, it all starts on the mound. I thought we pitched really well this weekend, and that started with Zach Berg on Friday night. And I actually didn't even think we've seen him a lot better. I think there were some nerves with him, and he wasn't as sharp as we've seen him. But he really blue-collared through it and kind of led the way for our pitching staff and gave him permission to be successful throughout the weekend, and it just kind of kept carrying over everybody we kept putting out there.
Yeah, he had a solid 5 innings starting on Friday for you guys. How key is that pitching staff going to be for the rest of the season?
It is. We feel really good about our pitching staff, and they've gotten better and better. The depth of our pitching staff, there was probably, I think we used 11 guys this weekend, and there's still 3, 4, 5 guys that we feel good about that never even, really even entered the conversation just because of how well other guys had pitched. So, that's definitely a strength of our team that we feel good about, and a variety of ways to use guys, and they showed it this weekend.
And speaking of Saturday, Grant Schmidt powers the team with a walk-off win. 2-out homer to the left. That had to be a great shot in the arm for the Road Runners, tied right before that.
Yes, that was fun. And Grant said that was his first walk-off he's ever had. Mm-hmm. So they don't happen very often, and you try to enjoy them. We almost got out. It didn't even need to come down to that. We almost threw a guy out at the plate with 2 outs in the last inning, and he barely made it in there. But that kind of set the heroics for Grant hitting the walk-off. I mean, it doesn't happen very often. We had a lot of cool moments this weekend. I thought, going back to Game 1, Zach Berg and Jacob Inns, they both retired the last batter they were going to face, and we had somebody, Inns coming in for Berg, and we had somebody else coming in for Inns. They both kind of reached their pitch count limit, and we liked the matchup. But they both made, retired their last guy they were facing to get the win and the save, which you don't really see happen very often. Then to have both of them make the pitch that they need to was good to see. And then, obviously the walk-off on Game 2 was very entertaining. It was an entertaining weekend as far as from a baseball standpoint.
And then home runs once again were the key in the 4-2 win in Game 3.
It is, and that's one thing you like when you're on the right side of that, but you try to preach as a coach that when you live by the home run, you can die by the home run too. And when they're not coming, it can be hard to score. And we need to be more well-rounded offensively to be able to manufacture some runs and not just kind of rely on the middle of our lineup hitting home runs. And we need to get more versatile offensively, but. It was fun to see. It was fun to see. It was definitely good hitting conditions all weekend, and I think that's what really makes the pitching stand out because of how good of a weekend it was to hit, in my opinion, until Sunday.
In the series finale on Sunday, the team rallies for 2 runs in the bottom of the 8th and then holds the Road Runners scoreless in the top of the 9th for the win. Talk about what it took for that win, 4 close games during the weekend.
Yeah, that's probably the closest series I've ever been a part of where, the winning score was 5 twice and 4 twice, and the game, every inning of the series was within 2 runs, not more than 2 runs, and most of the time it was tied or up or down 1 by either team, and So they made us work. Our teams, both teams, made the coaching staff work, and those can be very stressful games just because every move, comes down to the game could be being on the line, and so those are taxing mentally. But it's very nice to come out on the right side of it. So
after getting a sneak peek of what your guys bring to the table this season and being your second year as head coach, does your definition of success change any at all from last season?
We really talk about being the best version of what we can be. Obviously things can happen, especially in baseball. You can do everything right and not have success, and do everything wrong and have success. So we just try to focus on playing good baseball and performing to our capability, and I think one of the positive things from an offensive standpoint is that we didn't by no means play our best baseball, but we still found ways to win and got big hits when we needed to, and we were better in winning time. And I think that starts with the guys playing for each other. I think they really like being around each other, and they can feel something special brewing, and when teams play for each other and they don't want to let each other down, that's always a good sign as a coach. I mean, that's a mark of a good team.
You hit the recruiting trail hard last season. What type of players were you looking for?
First and foremost, we want to have good people in our program, and guys that wanted to be successful in the classroom, and because we think that kind of carries over to all facets of their lives, and so first and foremost, like I tell them, I spend a lot of time, a lot more time around them than my own family, even during certain part of the year. So I want to enjoy being around them, and I want to enjoy working with them, and so that's our first and foremost. And obviously they got to be able to bring something to the table, whether that's pitching, defense, hitting offensively, or being a great teammate, or there's lots of ways you can help the team out. And so we want guys, just the right guys. We're looking for the right guys that really care, and they want to be a part of something special.
In the past, FHSU had a really solid baseball tradition. And the city hasn't seen that in over a decade. Last year was a rough season. It was your first season. You had a roster full of players from a previous staff. How do you get recruits to buy into the program that you want to build here at FHSU?
I think just being honest with them and kind of explaining what we're trying to build. We're trying to build something for the long haul and do things right on a continuous basis and getting better. That's one thing the only thing we really promise guys when we recruit them is that you're going to graduate and you're going to get better. You're going to develop, and we've kind of had a track record of getting guys better and developing, and to me that's what it's all about, and just getting the right people in there that are hungry to make their mark on a program and get things going in the right direction.
And who are some newcomers that you've been impressed with so far?
There's been a lot. I've actually really been impressed with our returning guys too, and they've really done a good job. All year as far as just blending everything together. So I got to give credit to our returning guys from last year, but when you have 27, 28 new faces, it takes everybody to kind of come up to speed and get on the same page. And like I said, I don't think that would have been as much possible without the returning guys. But there's a lot of new guys. We felt really good about our mix between high school guys and junior college transfers, and then even getting 3 or 4 that are redshirt sophomores, so we have an extra year or two from a transfer standpoint. So it is pretty young. I mean, it's a good mix of young and old. But they're, I guess, on the mound, I would say new guys. Obviously the guys that threw this weekend. I mean, Zach Berg, Patty Walsh, Jake Campbell, Jacob Inns. Cade Flair. I mean, I could go on and on. There's a lot of them. We feel good about a lot of guys. We're even having the luxury to be able to redshirt a few guys, just because we don't want to waste a year with them, and that's a testament on how much depth we have, I think, on the mound in certain spots. And And then offensively, we'll have some big bats and staples in our lineup of Grant Schmidt, Corbin Truslow, Garrett Stevens behind the plate. Our leadoff hitter, Drake Angeron, center field. We've got a good mix of speed, power, and unfortunately, we got a few guys injured that we were really excited about, but it's given some more opportunities to other guys, and they've really stepped up too. So, pretty much as a whole, there's a lot of new faces out there, and probably too many to list. I know I'm forgetting a bunch of them. So, but it's a good group. It's a good group of guys to be around, and like I said, the biggest thing I'm really happy about is how much they're playing for each other.
We've talked about what strengths your team brings this season. What are some weaknesses that you might see?
I think, lack of depth in our infield. Couple guys are two-way guys too, but we're definitely thin in a few spots just because of some injuries. There was Cade Wallace and Jacob Buzide were two guys that we were really excited about. From an offensive and defensive standpoint that are both hurt. One, Cade will medical redshirt this year, and then there's a small possibility that Jacob Buzide could be back, but we're trying to adjust to life without him, and so that's kind of thinned out a few spots. But I would say, like I said, a position player depth could be a weak spot. If we had some guys hurt, but I think our pitching and defense has been really good so far.
Although it is early, who are some players that you expect to break out this season?
Like I said, some of the guys we listed, the Grant Schmidt, Corbin Truslow. I mean, a lot of those guys are kind of known names, in the baseball community. I mean, they're known about. They were highly recruited, and there was quite a few guys like that. I think, like I said, our Trey Yarborough could be a big one that could come, push really hard as a newcomer. Cade Flaherty on the mound, Jason Robertson, Jackson Webb. As far as young guys, you just never, they showed their youth at times this weekend, but it wasn't too concerning, I guess, from my standpoint. You kind of expect that as a coach. You're going to have some freshman jitters that first weekend, and I think that's something that everybody has to fight through as a player in college, and I think they did a good job with that this weekend. So I'm hoping that you kind of get that first weekend out of the way, and they can kind of relax a little bit more and play their game.
The team was picked last in the 12-team MIAA preseason poll this season. How much does that motivate your team for the spring?
I told our guys last year too that that's the last time that would happen, and then it didn't, and so I didn't even bring it up. I think our guys know what's going on, and I think that it's a group that motivates them. And that was a big part of getting some of those guys here, is they want to be a part of something to get the program back to where it was, what it used to be. So. That's something we really didn't even talk about this year, because I just knew our guys would already be looking at that stuff. I mean, some things to me are the best left unsaid, and because, like I said, I think our guys are already motivated to begin with, and they know that that we have a better group than a last place teams, but you got to go prove it, and I think I know they're hungry and motivated to have a great year this year.
The conference is tough. You'll see teams such as Central Missouri, Central Oklahoma, Missouri Southern. What is a realistic expectation out of the MIAA?
Oh, that is a good question. Baseball is such a unique sport. Like I said, for those reasons, you can put yourself in a great position to win, and baseball happens, and you end up losing games. And that's what was so nice to be coming out on the other side of that this weekend, and finding ways to win. And it's a tough league, though. I mean, there's definitely a lot of parity throughout the whole conference, and it was hard for me to kind of gauge the rest of the conference as a whole, just because I didn't think there wasn't a lot of games we were very competitive in last year. So it's kind of hard to tell about some of the other programs, but I know they're good. There's a lot of good coaches, and there's a lot of good players in this conference, and I think our goal will always be to win our conference. I mean, that's something that will never change from my standpoint, and I think our guys feel the same way. That we want to compete for championships. And that's why we told them that's what we wanted. The plan is when we brought them in. That's why we wanted them to be here, and because we want to compete for championships and regional appearances and finding out how good we can be. And so I know it'll be a tough league, and that's a pretty vague answer, but we just want to play our best baseball on a continuous basis.
And there's another tough set of 4 games ahead this weekend, especially since it's on the road at Colorado School of Mines, which you're very familiar with. Will there be any extra nerves knowing that you've coached there for 7 seasons?
Not from my standpoint. I think our players will be hungry. I think my former players at Mines will be hungry too. Most of those guys I recruited, and there's probably quite a few that I've known longer than some of our players, but so there'll be some mixed emotions, but some excitement. I think both teams will be really. I think we'll see some competitive baseball. I think you're going to see both teams really wanting to win, and it should be fun. But from my standpoint, I'm focused on our guys and on how well we can play and finding ways to win games. But it should be fun. It'll be a very good test. I think that's one of the. They have 3 of the best arms we'll probably face all year, and maybe 3 of the best arms in the country, but are a little lighter. They have a different kind of. They lost a lot of offense last year, so it'll be a little scrappier. But more pitching and defense from them. But it'll be a very good test. Like I said, we'll face 3 of the best arms we'll face all year this weekend. So.
And they were ranked 23rd in the latest poll. Are you going to use this weekend to kind of gauge where your guys are at right now?
Yeah, Metro's a good team, and like I said, I think, like I told their coaches, we could have easily just gotten swept as well with every game being so close, but we just did, like I said, we did the things that you needed to do to win, which was very encouraging, but that's a good team, and especially being the first series, I think both teams played pretty clean baseball. There wasn't, a lot of errors, and it was close back and forth, and so yeah, I mean, it's definitely a gauge, from an offensive standpoint. If we can do some good things against 3 really, really good starters, and then their bullpen is going to be really good too. I mean, they have they're loaded on the mound, so it'll be a definite test. And I think we're going to have to do a lot of better job this weekend of being able to manufacture some runs when you have to, and being opportunistic about it, which I wasn't as encouraged this past weekend from an offensive standpoint of doing that. So,
when you look at this season, how important is this second year going to be to rebuild the program?
I mean, it really feels like year 1 to me, to be honest, just because how much we recruited last year, and just it's big though. I mean, we want to keep moving in the right direction, and like there's a few guys. We have some seniors that this being their last go around, and so I don't think they're looking at it as a rebuilding year. They want to be as good as we can. They're not looking to the future. Obviously, this is it for them. So, I think as a program, you always want to keep that in your back of your mind. But yeah, it's definitely an important year as far as moving forward, and I think it was a right step in the right direction this last weekend as far as getting some attention to some people. And like I told them after the first 3 games, I mean, I think you've already gotten people's attention. If you really want to make a statement, you find a way to win on Sunday, and they did, to their credit. And so, I don't think we'll be able to sneak up on a lot of teams. I think, we're going to have to give it our best effort every time out there. And but it is big moving forward. We just want to keep. We want to play better baseball and put a good product out there on a continuous basis, and that's the most important part from my standpoint.
Well, thank you so much for joining me today, Coach, and good luck this weekend.
Absolutely. Thank you.
When we return from this break, we'll break down the rest of this week in athletics.
He often climbs to the third floor of Rarick without taking a second breath. No matter when he submits his assignment to Blackboard, it is considered early, even if it is 5 days late. The line at Starbucks parts when he arrives. He considers the homecoming bonfire a small flame for s'mores. Every time he walks downtown, it's considered a march to Maine. His doodles on scrap paper are framed and hung in Rarick Hall. Once he parked in a 30-minute zone overnight, and the campus police left him a thank you note and a gift card.
I don't always party, but when I do, I register with SGA. Now party responsibly, my friends.
Welcome back. Joining me now is FHSU SID Ryan Prickett, and he's going to help me break down the rest of this week in FHSU athletics. So men's basketball picked up its second straight win at home for a 69-56 win over Nebraska Kearney on Saturday.
Yeah, that was a big win for our men's program, obviously. Seeing how conference play has gone so far, the men have had a year of kind of struggle right now, and it's kind of rare for us to go through that. But, you know, the MIAA, the competitive balance this year, I think if you take away Northwest Missouri and Missouri Southern, which I think they've kind of separated, and I guess you could throw Rogers State in that mix too. Rogers has kind of proven themselves this year. But, you know, you go with the next 11 teams in the conference, and I kind of feel like it's a really competitive balance right now. And, yeah, I mean, we're sitting at 2-9 in the conference after that win, and that's one we needed to get, you know, on our home floor. Even the score with Kearney for the year. But, you know, Kearney was one of those teams in the top 6 in the conference coming into the game. And honestly, I feel like seeing how they've done in past years and seeing the team they had this year, that, you know, honestly, they might be kind of overachieving this year. And so that was key, that we get the month of February started out right, and we still got some key home games ahead of us yet. But if you kind of look at like the standings and the schedule that's ahead of the men's basketball team right now, you know, yeah, top 10 go to the MIAA tournament in Kansas City, but I think they have a good shot at making a run here through February if they just play well enough. I think that's been the biggest problem with those guys is the inconsistency of play here and there. And, you know, they shoot their free throws really well. That's one positive of things we've done this year. One of the best free throw shooting teams in the country. But, you know, you got to give yourself opportunities to get to the line for one. But the defense, too, I think that's been the other issue is, you know, defending teams and the perimeter shot. A lot of teams have shot really well against us from three-point range, and if we can limit that, you know, over the last month stretch of the season, I really think we might be able to jump into that mix and make the conference tournament at the end of the year. So the schedule, like I said, looks favorable in February. Even some of the road games that we have in front of us are against teams that are in the bottom half of the standings. So I think if you're going to make a run, now's the time. And yeah, we kind of got through that tough part of the schedule and played some of the hard teams early on in the schedule. But I still think, you know, with how Mark coaches those guys, and, you know, he's going to have them ready. And, you know, it's just a matter of if we can go out there and compete hard, and maybe good things will happen here in the month of February.
And they have a chance to grab 2 wins here at home this week. First Newman on Thursday, and then they'll face UCO on Saturday.
Yeah, and Newman is a key one to get it. You know, like I said, you've already kind of started things going in the right direction by, you got that win over Kansas Wesleyan, kind of get, the losing taste out of your mouth, and then you go beat Kearney on Saturday, and so now you're on a 2-game streak. And Newman is that a team that's right there at the bottom of the standings with us, and so that is, you have to get that win on your home floor if you're going to feel good about making a move here in the standings late in the year. And Central Oklahoma is another one of those teams down there in the bottom third of the conference. So this is a great week for our men to potentially get themselves up there to maybe 4 wins in conference play. And right now, 4 wins is right there on that 8 to 9 line in the conference standings. So if we have a few of those teams up there go 0-2 this week, all of a sudden you're right there in the mix, and you still got a few weeks to play. So hopefully that'll be the case after we get done this week here at home.
Right, and unfortunately the women came up short on Saturday, falling to the Lopers 72-67.
Yeah, and obviously I guess Nebraska Kearney just has our number this year. They played well against us here on Saturday, shot the ball really, really well, and obviously in that second quarter where it had been a back and forth battle all the way up to that point. It's just they hit a few key outside shots and throw one in the bucket from almost half court right before the buzzer. That kind of sucked the air out of the gymnasium. You kind of feel like oh my gosh, how many of these shots are they going to hit? And that's tough. And then they came out and hit a couple of shots right there early in the second half and put us down by 14. And once you're down by that much to that good of a opponent, it's hard to make that uphill climb, and we almost got there. I think there was a point there I can't remember if it was third quarter or early fourth, where we had made a really good run at him, and I think if Taylor Rolfe, she shot a 3 in transition. If that would have went in, I think that would have cut it down to 2, and I think the building was just itching, like the top was about ready to blow off the building, and we just couldn't quite get that one basket that would have, I think, just pushed us through and maybe got us over the top. But looking at where Kearney is right now, overall that's really not a bad loss in the grand scheme. Yes, it kind of hurts that now that you got you're 0-2 against Kearney for the year. They're going to have you probably in the region rankings as far as the head-to-head and all that. But there's still some games in front of us that are now obviously must-wins. As far as like the region rankings are concerned, against some of those teams that are towards the bottom of the MIAA standings. We cannot afford to allow one of those teams to pick us off. But we also have some critical games in front of us with Central Oklahoma and Central Missouri still ahead of us on the schedule, and Central Oklahoma twice for that matter. And so there's some quality games there where we can still beef up that strength of schedule and maybe try to solidify ourselves in the NCAA tournament field.
And of course, the women will tip off before the men this week, 5:30 for Newman, and then they'll tip off against UCO at 2 on Saturday.
Yeah, and looking at those games like I was just explaining there, Newman's towards the bottom of the standings right now, and you feel like that's one you need to get on your home floor. They're sub 500 overall, but Central Oklahoma is going to be a critical one, and to try and, like I said, with the region rankings, we're 4 losses now overall. Central Oklahoma took a loss at home this last Saturday that they probably shouldn't have. They lost to Northwest Missouri. So Central Oklahoma was kind of right on that edge of one of those teams that was probably looking at potentially getting in the NCAA tournament. But right now, I'd probably, if I was just to mock up a top 8 or 10, they'd be just outside that top 8 looking to get in right now. And so they're going to be hungry, and that's a good squad. And they've played well in some road games this year, and so we're going to have to be ready for that test as well on Saturday. So it's going to be another huge Saturday on both sides of the coin, talking about the men's program and how big those games are this week. It's a big week of basketball here at Gross Coliseum, and we hope to see another very good sizable crowd out there to support our teams, as the crowd came out in a good showing there on Saturday. So hopefully we see that again this week.
Yes, definitely. Tiger Wrestling sits at 4-5 on the year after falling to UCO over the weekend.
Yeah, and UCO, they also went up and defeated Nebraska Kearney. So right now, the way it's kind of looks like Central Oklahoma may be our dual champion in MIAA action this year. The conference has dwindled down to just 5 teams now. So I think they've about got that thing locked up after they beat Kearney. So, but you know, our guys, there were some individual matchups there that they did really well, and even even a match I'll talk about here in a sec, like at 184 pounds, where they had the #1 guy in the nation, and we took him all for all he wanted to handle. Arias Jones had a really good match. So, but I think that seeing the likes of like Conrad Viner, he had a really tough, tight match at, I believe it was 165 pounds, but probably on paper going into that match probably wasn't favored over the other guy, but wrestled really well, got us some points. Brandon Ball did what he usually does, and he continues to be one of our top-ranked wrestlers, and is one of the top-ranked wrestlers at 141 pounds nationally. And A.J. Cooper continues to have a big year at heavyweight, and Marty Verhage also picked up a win over there at 174 pounds. But A.J.'s he's second among Division II wrestlers right now in pins this year. So he's kind of that's his way of winning matches, and he got one right there with about 13 seconds to go in the match. And so 13 against Division II opponents this year, 13 pins. He's had a really good year, and he's already up past 30 wins individually this year. So we've got some guys having some really good years, and we got a few more duels left on the schedule ahead of us. And but I think right now, as you get into February, they're starting to think about, okay, now we got to worry about NCAA regional. And the cool thing is our guys are going to get to stay in their own beds for the NCAA regional. We're going to be hosting it here at Gross Coliseum. So I think that's going to be a fun weekend, and there's going to be some good teams that come in here, and the competition's going to be at a fever pitch that Sunday, which I believe I'm trying to think. I think it's March 1, if I'm thinking of the schedule right. It's right there. We have a leap year this year, so I'm trying to remember if that's right there at the end of February. But it's on that weekend. So, but yeah, it's going to be an interesting regional coming up in February, and I've seen some good things out of our guys, and I'm hoping that they succeed in that tournament format here later in the year.
After competing in 2 meets over the weekend, FHSU Track and Field will head to Maryville, Missouri for the Bearcat Open on Friday and Saturday. Yeah,
and some good individual performances out of the track team here early on. This last weekend, they were scattered all over the map. We've been taking different, I guess, groups of individuals, like some of our multi-athletes will go to one meet, and then the sprinters go to this meet, and then maybe the distance people go to this meet. I think they kind of pick and choose based on what the competition is or what it's going to be at some of those meets, and maybe if they can get some higher level competition to push our athletes in some of those different settings, I guess, is kind of how they're picking and choosing where our guys go right now. But Ryan Stanley had a really good weekend in the pole vault. He got himself up there into the top 5 nationally in that event with the provisional mark, and he was, I think, only about a ½ inch short of the indoor school record too. So to see how well he's done early in his collegiate career, sky's the limit for him yet as he goes forward throughout his career here at Fort Hays State. And then Kayla Smith also picked up on the women's side. She picked up a provisional in the triple jump. So a couple of our ladies have some provisionals early on, and I think we have a total of 4 guys right now overall with provisional marks. But Ryan's probably the biggest individual, like as far as like up in the standings nationally right now. I have a full expectation of him sitting where he is right now. I don't think there's any chance that he's going to slip out of the top 15. So I think he's just about punched his ticket for the NCAA championships. It's just seeing if any of these other individuals can improve their marks, maybe try to get up into like what I always like to say, that top 15 or top 18. If you're somewhere in that mix, you have a good chance at getting selected to the NCAA championship. So we'll see how that all goes. And we're going to go back over to Maryville again this coming weekend. We've already had some that have competed there already once this year, but you got to go where the indoor facilities are, and only a few select schools around this footprint of the country have those that are of the regulation size. So, and we go to Pittsburgh a lot. They have a really nice facility, but so anyway, we'll see how that goes this weekend for the track and field team, and hopefully good results as we go here throughout the spring.
Yes, definitely. Well, that wraps up this week. Thank you for joining me today, Ryan.
You're welcome.
That concludes this episode. Tune in next week for another episode of This Week in Tiger Athletics. And as always, to stay up to date on the latest news and information throughout the week, visit tigermedianet.com.